Day. My name is Mabel Peacock, chairwoman of Oak Lake Writers Society, and it's my honor and my great pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Lydia Whirlwind Soldier. Just a little bit about her background. Lydia is a Sichungu Lakota born at Bad Nation, a community on the Rosebud Reservation in South Dakota. Lydia Whirlwind Soldier has worked as an instructor in the education department of St. Gleshka University and as an elementary teacher and Indian Studies coordinator for Todd County School District in Mission, South Dakota. She has just finished a K-12 cultural curriculum for RST Education, which is at the publishing house now, and she is currently working on some language curriculum as well. In 1999, Lydia became the first society member to publish a full-length book. In memory songs, she reimagines the oral tradition as poetry to express what it means to have Lakol Wicho'un, the Lakota way of being. Lydia's book paved the way for other society members to publish. And welcome, Lydia.
Good morning. Can you all hear me? I'm not a loudspeaker, so I have to have a mic. I don't know where to start here, but I guess I'm going to read you a poem that I wrote. And as a Lakota speaker, I haven't really studied English. Because of my background, I took the minimum of English that I felt like I was being forced to take. So the reason for that was because when I first entered school, I was just a Lakota speaker, and I went into a boarding school. And you know how Lakota speakers were treated in those days. So I was full of resentment and rebelled and took minimum of English that I had to. And one time when I went home, I told my grandfather the way that we were being treated, and he said, "Ni Lakota, duweni ektushino. Don't ever forget that you're Lakota." And so I've always lived by that. And I didn't think I was a poet. You know, one time one of my friends was reading one of my journals, and she said, "I love your poetry." And I grabbed it away from her, and I said, "Is that poetry?" I didn't think it was, because when I wrote, I followed my own rules. I didn't follow the rules of the English language. So I wrote this. This poem was selected in my memory songs book, the only published book that I have. But another one is coming out. Another collection of poetry will be coming out, and I titled this "Lakota Poet" with a question mark. This Lakota poet don't know form, free verse, prose, or oxymoron, or rhyme creation. Faces gauntlet, intimidation, rules, must conform to silver tongue discrimination. Scholars say artistry must have documentation and linear confirmation. This Lakota poet, again with a question mark, has a literary tradition, philosophy, oratory, drama, music, and oral tradition, and don't need validation. So I've always felt that way. I listened to my grandfather and followed the path that he created for me. He was a storyteller, and he wrote, and he was a singer. And I always followed the way that he tried to teach me. I remember one time people talking about poetry, And I thought, what is our Lakota word for poetry? And I searched and I asked different people, what is our Lakota word for poetry? And then I asked Tiblo Albert Whitehat, Albert, what's our Lakota word for poetry? And he said, we don't have a word for poetry. Our poetry is in our songs. Listen to the songs and you will hear Lakota poetry. And so that's why I titled my book Lakota Memory Songs. Because these poems are a lot of memories, and it's not poetry, they're songs. I remember inmate from Sioux Falls Penitentiary wrote to me and asked me, can I use your poems? I'm going to write songs. So I said, you're free to use it any way you want. And I don't know if he ever did, but, so my next poetry book that will be coming on will have the word songs in it. This one's called Collision of Time. It's about a person who lived in the boarding school system, who went through the boarding school system. Times she wished to leave behind, memories that fill her hollow breast. Times she wanted to sing her death song, weeping for what she could not have. Times she wanted to throw those relentless sorrows to the spirit wind, watch them flutter and float like the dead leaves of fall, and embrace the comfort of Uji Maka's warm shawl. Times she wanted to live fulfilled and content. Let the foul-ups, mess-ups, and heartaches fade, because the deep voice within still sings those strong heart songs into the moonless night, defiant against the losses, hurting memories and loneliness, defiant against the wings of death, nourished and protected, while the spirit wind whispers, sometimes weeping, calling for the embrace of healing time. Times of harbored fear and apathy, a loved one's death, tentacles of grief grip her shattered dreams, left tantalizing out of reach. Succumb to the vacuum left by the passing. Wipe that trail of tears from your brown face. Put it in the past, you say. Throw them into the dark, somber resting places. Turn them against the tide. Be saved by her strength and easy laughter, gift from the spirit of time. Right now, I think that most of you realize that we're losing our language. And it's really important that we do everything we can to save our language. I'm writing Lakota language curriculum right now. Just start at level 1. And of course, I'm not an expert. And there's a lot of Lakota, not a lot. There's some Lakota speakers who know a lot more than I do. So I have their help. And I'm always asking people to help. And I do have a post on Facebook where I post Lakota phrases, just ordinary, everyday phrases, hoping that Lakota people will pick them up and start learning them. And I invite anybody who wants to write on that post. They're welcome to give their ideas and their words and whatever corrections, if they corrections need to be made, they need to, they're welcome. I welcome everyone that's contributing. I wrote this one called Battlefields. Smoke rises heavy, rubs against the lodges. Wind warns the valley, the appointed place. Sky and earth melt, the wrath of winter mists and Gatling guns. Breaks above the ridge, hooves of thunder carve and grind scarlet, crunching snow and ice. The cavalry rages. Frothy blood, Akijita breathes to see winter moon, journey no more. Tattered robes and nameless, splintered bones, scattered unknown, the comfort of the scaffold. A sun hidden in the crow's nest listens for the hunters. A riddle breast shields a whimpering. On stained prairie rose, bitter wind hums a comfort cradle song. Lone tumbleweeds embrace the death song. Somewhere, warriors greet ancient spirits. We hear them when silence climbs above the storm. I wrote this when I thought of Wounded Knee and Blue Water. I had my Whirlwind Soldier's mother was Spotted Tail's sister, and she was married to Spotted Crow, and they were both killed at Sand Creek, and a daughter with them. And so, every one of us probably has that history. We just have to find it. That history of our ancestors, giving their lives, trying to save others. I also have my new collection. I also have a collection of short stories. I was home for 3 months out of every year for 12 years from boarding school. And those 3 months, I have really wonderful memories. My grandparents raised me, and I have a lot of really good memories. So I wrote about those memories in my short stories, and maybe I'll get those published eventually. But sometimes I worry, as I said, I worry about our language. And I wrote this one, Voices in the Wind. I've heard those voices so soft and full, words spoken and left in the wind. I feel them in the blue of skies and breathe them in. Maybe they were left in a passing storm or in the silence of frost left behind. Maybe if I listen, those words, soft and distant, will call again. Maybe in a cricket song, or in a long shadowed making sun, or in a leaf-littered path, or in a Sundance tree, ragged bark. Maybe if I listen, those words will come again in the swish of night waves, and in the wide open spaces of prairie, in the blue horizon, or in the fraying thunder clouds. Maybe my words will comfort the ghosts, rise up in currents, magnified with the light of dawn, in the sparkle of snow, in the moon of popping trees. Stories do not die when left in the wind. Maybe if I speak softly, my words will be remembered by the wind. And Albert, Thibaut Albert Whitehead was really a great teacher. And sometimes when I asked questions, he'd say, Lydia, we don't want to know everything, but listen, because those stories will come back. There'll be a little bit here and a little bit there, and elders will say those little bits and pieces, and you'll be able to put them together and find out, what some of the things that we lost and some of the things that come back. And I asked him one time, I said, Albert, I've always heard that we were the star people, And he said, that's true. We were star people first, and then the buffalo people, and then the Ikche, the ordinary man, and then we became the Lakota. We became the Lakota when we developed all the values, the way that we live, the way that we treat relatives, to be a good relative. And he said, that's being Lakota. So he said, yes, we were star people first. And then I was listening to PBS and different things, and they were talking about every element that's in the universe is in our bodies or in us. So we are star people because every element that's out there in the universe is in our bodies. And so, that's another little tidbit, you pick up here and there and you listen and you learn. What the elders say, the wisdom, we can learn from that wisdom. And we have to start interviewing these elders. I'm one of the elders now. I have to laugh at myself when I say that. But, what do I know? What fraction of knowledge do I have that my grandparents, know about being Lakota? About what my parents knew. This one I wrote, HoChoka, within the circle. Everything in a circle has a song. Songs like fine, transparent threads spin dreams that emerge in stars unnumbered, of sunshine in rainbow-colored places, of silent memories caught in the bright blue sky, in the beauty of the prairies, in the glow of the mountains, in the colorful swirls of sunsets, in the flower shades before the last traces of day slip away into slivers of light, into the Milky Way, like a river glistening flows with songs, a rhythmic chant of the universe. Hey, 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 hey. Partake in the beauty and opulence of HoChoka, the center. And here's one I wrote about the star people, and that's us, Lakota people. Lakota legends tell us we were star people first. Ancient stardust, Ine, the breath of creation, traveling to unknown destinations through vast spacious galaxies, a spark of energy. Our DNA riding eagle's wings, Travis, hitched to DNA horses, weaving throughout the heavens, riding the solar winds, wandering crimson star campfires, leaving soundless footprints in stardust, moonlight, and in the northern lights. We found our connection to our beautiful Unchimaka millions of years ago. These thoughts linger in my mind as I gaze at the infinite universe. I feel small and insignificant. At the same time, I feel blessed. I feel a bond with nature and the universe and in all its miracles. If you notice, if you listen to the Lakota songs, who told our people that, they had rules to follow when they wrote a song? Who told our people they must conform to these rules? And they told us I don't know. I guess I was kind of hesitant in sharing my poetry because I always thought, I don't follow these rules. I just write what comes to my mind and what it sounds like. Does it sound like a song? I don't I don't write rhyming poetry. It's mostly free verse, just like a Lakota song. So I guess as a whirlwind soldier, I've always done what I pleased. When the whirlwind soldier camp first came onto the Rosebud Reservation, there was a superintendent, BIA superintendent, that said his name was Wright. I read this. Mel Jackson did some research. He went to D.C. and went through the archives and found this superintendent Wright said, when the whirlwind soldiers came onto the reservation, place them as far away from the agency as possible. I don't want these troublemakers, these heathens near our agency. So they placed us out in Bad Nation and called us Bad Nation. But that was okay because our whole community spoke nothing but Lakota. And they had gardens and they had cattle. And, we didn't need BIA help. We hardly ever came to Rosebud to ask for help. But we did come every now and then. And then when I went to apply for my papers to travel to Sweden, they couldn't find my birth certificate because we were all born at home. And finally, BIA found where my great-grandfather came to the Rosebud Agency and reported that a little girl was born and they were going to name her Lydia after one of her grandmothers who died in St. Francis from the flu, when the flu epidemic hit St. Francis, and she died there. And I was named after her. And I remember my great-grandfather telling me there was a kid that ran away from St. Francis. His name, I can't remember his first name, but his last name was Phallus. And he came to my grandparents and said, kids are dying in St. Francis. And your daughter is really sick. So my great-grandfather hired one of the white ranchers, and they went to St. Francis. He took him to St. Francis, and they went to the girls' dormitory, but they had it all locked up. They weren't letting anybody in because of the flu spreading. And they didn't want any more people to get sick. So, but my great-grandfather was like over 6 feet tall, and he's a big man. And he pounded and pounded on the door, and he was getting ready to kick it in. And they opened the door, so he pushed his way in. And he asked where his daughter was, and they said, she's in that room. So he went to that room, and there were little kids all laying on the floor in a row, all covered with blankets, and they were all dead. And so he went from child to child, lifting the covers until he found her. And then he just took a blanket and wrapped her up and carried her out and got into the vehicle that took him and headed for Bad Nation. And by that time, St. Francis called the police, the BIA police. So the police came, but they were afraid of being exposed to the flu. So they just followed just to make sure that he went straight to Bad Nation. And she's buried out there. He didn't want her buried in St. Francis at the cemetery. He wanted her buried at home with her loved ones. So, he told us that story. But, and to think that somehow my great-grandfather became a Christian. And my grandfather became a Christian, but he told us when we were little, if you don't want to go to church, you don't have to. And my grandmother was a Christian, and she went to church every Sunday. And we went with her for a while. And when my grandfather said, "You don't have to go if you don't want to," we didn't go anymore. And but my grandfather was a singer. He knew all the ceremonial songs, and he taught my brothers. All my brothers were singers. They knew all the Sundance songs and all the sweat songs. They knew all these songs. And they're all gone now. I had 4 brothers, and they're all gone now. But, those songs were revived. And maybe not all songs are saved, but many songs are saved, and I'm grateful for that. So here's one I wrote about the Sweat Lodge. Stone Voices. It's about the Sweat Lodge. Under the willow arbor, return to the womb, retreat from threatening storms, breach the confusion. Sing those pure and mellow songs, time-worn prayers, strong and steady, honest and compassionate, finding harmony with the spirit within. Beyond words, quiet, faithful tradition, nothing profound, only an inner glance, a reflection, ultimate reality. Emerge renewed and healed. Seek the image of those glowing, talking stones. And this one's about my mom. My mom, when they first let us have Sundance ceremonies on our reservation, there was 6 women who came out to Sundance and 3 men, and that was it. Just those 9 people came out to dance. And many people didn't know the songs. And they sang the same song over and over and over all those days because they didn't know the songs, until other elders start coming out and saying, "I remember this song. My grandfather sang this song," and he would teach the singers. So by the last day, they were singing more than one song. And my mother was called a Sundance mother because she was one of the few that came out. But my mother was a rebel. She did what she wanted to do, and she talked Lakota when she wanted to, and she didn't let too many people get away with racist acts around her. Sundance Mother, I titled this one. It's for my mom. Her dreams were caught in the turbulence and tossed aside, cast into shadowed and ominous places, carved and shaped by violent storms, a world of renunciation, the pain heavy and narrow on her shoulders. Sad faces and stained glass windows, stations of the cross, corrupted, shallowed by a malignant world of confessionals and golden angels, battered and held captive like a butterfly pinned to symbols of illusionary good. She slipped into silence and cloudy memory. Years stretched before her, she wandered adrift, taunted death, searched for safe resting places. Sunbeams summoned strength through the darkened paths and swamps of self-doubt and fear. She found what remained, brilliant and clear. She escaped to soar on silk wings of sunrise and sunset colors, to return to the triumph, to the truth of a Sundance mother. So she went to boarding school, and in my day, it's kind of hard to say, but a lot of the kids wanted to be white. They wanted, so the kids that were mixed were the favorites of the nuns and of the teachers. And the kids that didn't speak English well were punished at every opportunity. And other kids made fun of the kids that spoke broken English. And they called us buck Indians, big Indians. And they called us black. And they called us all kinds of names. And that's what my mother went through. And with the stained glass windows of churches and the Stations of the Cross, she had to participate in all that because she was, in reality, a prisoner of war. And she had to participate in those religious ceremonies. But in the end, she found herself and she became a sun dancer. And she danced almost, all the 70s and the 80s until she passed away. And she knew all the songs too. A lot of us don't realize how our parents suffered and how our grandparents suffered to retain their identity. And some of the kids today don't know who they are. They don't know Lakota tradition. They don't know Lakota language. And it's up to us to bring all that back because the Lakota culture is a beautiful, beautiful culture. It's all about kindness, of being generous, of being brave. I asked my students one time, what does being brave mean to you? And he said, he put up his fists right away. He thought, being brave was fighting. But it isn't being brave. It's doing difficult things, going through those difficult things and coming out in the end and knowing that you did your best and that you're a winner no matter what. I wrote this one, Crazy Horse, Hawk Eagle, and Other Warriors. Crazy Horse is one of our greatest heroes. Since time past remembering, shadows of old warriors give quiet voice to the young. To prepare a warrior if time should come to pay that fearful price. The nighthawk spreads its wings. Mothers weep in tangled darkness before the fleeting images streak across the scarlet dawn. Strong heart songs are heard in the wind. Remember those who came proudly with grandfathers' eagle-feathered banners. Remember they did not refuse to defend this holy earth when the nation called. Strong heart songs are heard again in the wind. I remember reading one of Chief Seattle's, and it wasn't really a poem, but it was something that he said, and somebody wrote down that our spirits may travel this universe. Once we leave this earth, leave our bodies, our spirits may travel this universe. But we always come back to this Uchimaka because she's our mother. And you know how we love our mothers and how we always return to our mothers. So, I like the thought of being able to travel the universe. And I like the thought of being able to see my relatives when I leave this earth. And when someone dies, I just lost a grandson. When somebody dies, I feel really, we miss them. We feel really sad because they're gone from this existence. But my mother always said, remember, all your other relatives are there to meet them. They welcome them, and that's comforting. So, death from our physical body It's sad. We leave those people behind and they miss us. But again, there's all our relatives waiting for us. And it's a grand reunion. And I think that's why the Lakotas were not afraid of death. It used to be that way. We were not afraid of death because our relatives are waiting to greet us and to hold us and embrace us and welcome us. But now we've lost some of those teachings. So there's many people who are afraid of death. But I think of that, at my age, it won't be long. I'll be leaving, but I know that my mother, my dad, my grandparents, they're going to all be waiting for me, and it's going to be a joyful reunion. There was my oldest brother was a counselor at the hospital, at the IHS hospital, and he spoke. They always called him when elders were dying, because he spoke fluent Lakota, and he would go and comfort them and sit with them. And one time he told me there was this old man, his name was Winter Chaser. And my brother went to sit with him. And I'll read this to you and explain it a little bit after I read it. Winter Chaser, his voice reached deep, joy and strength in his name, Winter Chaser. Voyager in winter places, in his own deepest being, repeating his name. Ma wanki etho lila dayan wahi, he said. Rise up one more time before you lay down beneath that blanket of snow. Stare out into the July sun at the towering mushroom thunderheads. Winter Chaser, find the comfort of snow. The warrior sends that zigzag crackling arrowheads from his bow. Whisper softly, Winter Chaser. The listening sky sends jagged, ragged, dark cloud curtains and streamers of snow. Whisper softly, Winter Chaser. The spirits come. Wanahi below. Clothed in amber light, blurred by falling snow, Winter Chaser. My brother went to spend this last time with Winter Chaser, and he was laying there, and all of a sudden he just sat up, and he said it was in July, and how hot it gets at home in July. And there's always thunderstorms that come up. And Winter Chaser sat up and he said, Ma, wanki etho lila dayan wahi. He said, oh my goodness, look at that. There's snow. It's snowing. And that's what he saw before, he passed away. And I just, wonder, I don't know the history of that name, Winter Chaser, but I can imagine a little boy who loved the snow, who loved to play in the snow, who probably went sleigh riding, probably went horseback riding, just playing in the snow, loving that snow. And the snow came to greet him and take him, go with him when he left. I wrote this one, Blue Water Creek. Somebody tell me, am I running out of time? I got carried away here. I thought when I said 45 minutes, I said, oh my God, 45 minutes. I don't think I can talk that long. At first, 5 more minutes? Okay. At first I thought, when they said 15 minutes, okay, I can do that. At 45 minutes, oh no. Blue Water Creek is where a lot of HoChoka people were killed. And it was the first battle between the cavalry and the Sichanko people. And it was Harney. He was in charge of the cavalry that came up on Blue Water Creek. And Harney was like 6'2". He was a great big man. He was broad. He was a big man. And he intimidated people. He intimidated Lakota warriors, and he intimidated Lakota chiefs. And he came up against Little Thunder, who was 6'4" and a big man, and Spotted Tail, who was 6'2" and a big man, and he couldn't bully them. But he came up against them in Blue Water Creek. And they said Spotted Tail, our famous Sichanko leader, killed every cavalry that came up against him. And he had a saber wound clear through his body, and he was shot, but he kept fighting. And they ended up escaping. And, but he somehow managed to hide under some evergreens. And Whirlwind Soldier found him at night and did the best he could with his wounds, and finally got him up north, up this way. But a group of women and children ran to the edge of the valley. If you go to that valley, you'll see at the edge of the valley, there's a cave. And the women and children ran to this cave and hid in this cave. And the cavalry found them and killed them all. And it wasn't until maybe a year later, or maybe longer, when some pioneers came through and found the bones of these women and children in this cave, and really found out what happened. So this is Blue Water Creek. It's I didn't know where to go when I wanted to see Blue Water Creek. I didn't know where to go, and I went to the museum. And there was a lady there. She was very helpful. She took us there. And she lives along Blue Water Creek. And she said, sometimes we hear singing, and sometimes we smell smoke. And so, those spirits, somehow, they must have loved that area to come back every now and then. Blue Water Creek, there are ghosts everywhere, leaving no tracks in the long shadowed dusk in this deceptively peaceful valley. Painted in soft shades of summer, teepee rings hold memories, soft murmurings of buffalo hunts, gathering of food plants and berry picking. Spotted colts race, their tails flowing in the wind. A faint cry of a child with troubled dreams and a soft lullaby. A sleeping village lay quiet. The morning before, the landscape and hills roared with the madness of battle. In this silent, empty space called Blue Water Creek. Okay, thank you for listening. Yeah.